Right, greetings everybody. Welcome to another video, and today we're going to be doing a data test as well as a initial judgment of Miss Fang here. And if you've been following the JP side, you probably know what I'm going to say about her. Because we've taken a look at Fang's data, and the thing that I came to a conclusion very quickly was that Fang, I don't think brings enough to the lightning table at all to be really that useful. And as it turns out, that's pretty much true. Fang's doesn't really have anything that is beneficial to lightning. And if you look at Fang from historically, because some people commented this in the previous videos, and I do want to address this. Some people are saying, why would you expect Fang to be wind? Why would you expect... I expected to be a tank or like this, that, or the other thing. And the thing is, 13 characters are mostly flexible about their jobs because of the way the system works. So getting too much in a huff about what their job was, not that anybody was, but the point being that I think 13 characters could be basically anything they wanted. There might be a little bit of precedence from before with FFB, but in general, they could have been anything. In terms of elements wise, personally, I kind of like the idea of each of the 13 characters kind of going their own element. It is something that I've also liked with Another Story 3, mainly because it means that every element is getting something. And also to that point towards the Veritas unit. Well, it's nice to know that every element is going to have a new character in some kind of known time frame, which is, to me, something way better than how it's been lately. If you look at JP and you look at where JP is now and JP's history of releasing units, and the last really real fire unit that made a huge difference, or just, hey, a fire unit, was Soul. So when you look at this, yeah, units can change obviously from what they were earlier, and I have a feeling that Fang was changed from wind to lightning, and that is partially just to do with how strong wind is right now, and that wind is kind of going that spear direction. It probably wasn't a last second change. It was probably something that's been planned for 8-bit. Maybe when they realized that they were going to be doing the Veritas units, they figured, we made Fang wind earlier, but we're going to change her to lightning just because of balancing. And the end result is this to me, is that I think that in general, right where Fang is in lightning is a wasted opportunity. You look at how strong lightning is and some of the great things that lightning can do already, Fang is a little bit outclassed. But it's really that she doesn't contribute that much. Yes, some lightning units do like to use barriers, but it doesn't feel like her damage type is very well served, since her kit kind of wants you to do more with spears. And let's get the obvious. Well, I guess we'll also talk about this right now. I've watched a considerable amount of content of Fang, and the overall JP impressions of her are pretty not great. It's not to say that this is another case of not a bad unit, but a unit that is probably in the wrong spot and is struggling without maybe some newer vision cards. Just taking a cursory look at Altima, her rating has actually dropped over the last couple of days, gone from a SS in PvP down to a S+ at about a 9.6. And yeah, that seems probably pretty right. Jumping over to game 8, Wotv, and sorry it's not on screen, but just they have her at S, which game 8 can go all the way up to S+, but in general, her just reset PvE content rating is an S. And while her PvP is still an SS, I kind of expect that to drop over the next few days, because you look at her current matchup spread against most of the stuff out there that's strong, like Souls group, you look at against Water and Ice, you look at it with a bunch of stuff, and the two various methods are as follows. Stick Fang in Lightning element and hope it goes well, or stick Lightning in, sorry, it's a little get Fang into a group with all spears, which I've seen a various kind of muster around with this, and both of these kind of seem really not performing anywhere near as well as you kind of would expect them to. Because JP right now, between Dario, Fly Glassy, and Win Veritas, is actually really, really strong. So I kind of expected Fang to get there, but as we get into in this video, we'll talk about some of the core problems that seem to be popping up with her and whether or not I think they can be fixed in the future, because that's something that globalers are going to know, whether this is this unit that you can easily skip or not, because Fang's a cool character. I'll go right out and say this, that she is my favorite of the FF13 characters. I like her a ton for a bunch of reasons. At least, not to say anything about the fact that she's paired with Bahamut, one of my favorite summon of all Final Fantasy. So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of things. Let's take a look. So we've got our party set up here against mages, which, yeah, we kind of expected mages to be generally one of her worst matchups. She's more geared towards anti-physical damage, so I want to test her out against mages to see how much she can bear. We have just the good old Raph, V, and Helena, which is pretty still current in terms of power levels. Maybe not in this VC standard, but hey, I'm working with what I got currently in Hollow VC for expense. You understand, I'm sure. But for comparison, let's take a look at Fly Glassy here, who has these stats. As well as I'll jump over here and show those resistances, and then jump back over to Fang for a second, who looks like this. And with these resistances, I'd say it's fairly close. But let's get into it without further ado, because I've definitely talked enough and we'll have to do some more. And for my current setup, there is a lot of newer VCs that have been based around Spear that I just do not have. I don't have Ultros. I don't have quite a few different VCs that just haven't been lucky, haven't drawn, and the game doesn't seem to be wanting to do me any favors, so that's more than a little frustrating, obviously, but we work with what we running some stuff here, getting it all set up. Oh, we have actually Wind Fang here. I didn't remember that this was that map, apparently, but that's actually kind of hilarious for the sake of this video. All right, running this, we'll just go back down here, cast this ability. Fortunately, we're not going to get it on our Fang, but one of the things here is we want barriers active. We'll get this, and we'll just get Wind Veritas here. Cast this ability, boosting up our characters and getting another barrier. And last but not least, Fang up here. And for the initial part of this test, well, one of the main things I do want to try out is just getting her barrier active. And before I done goof, and it's been a couple of days, I'm gonna make sure that it's under, yeah, this one. I had it correct, but just checking. Wind Veritas is going to do just a little bit of work here because he finds it quite rude. What's going on? Dodges that one. Yep. We're losing a few hits to our barrier, but nothing too. We'll get this AP down just so Flag Glassy has a little bit more ability here. And then we're going to bring in Helena and just fire off this limit burst here and take a look. Much as you would expect from this because of what we covered previously, general barriers here working way harder than Fang's barrier, which is just anti-physical. It is a problem, but you can see about how much she is losing compared towards some of the other characters on a giant AoE. Wind is capable of having just a really, really strong anti-magic, anti-AoE, and these two spear characters are kind of just outperforming Fang already off of the initial. If we just take a look here at this ability, which causes the sleep status effect, Fang isn't really performing any better against some of the status effects that certain characters are running right now, which is also just a bit of a problem. We go into single target. Here is something where Fang does, pretty well. Just taking physical or single target damage, she just has more single damage resistance. She can stack it, and it ends up being good for her and her performance. So let's pass that. We're going to pass right on through. Maybe we should one more ability here, get that boost going so we can try out BBs in a second. And one other thing we probably want to do here is just take a little bit of a peek at what our resistances are on our tank. Now, Wrath is generally weaker, and this is something that I've noted that I will talk about in terms of the matchup spread that we've seen. But taking a look here, essentially, story is the exact same. We can run a few other different skills to see how they perform. I do believe this one. And yeah, similar story across these damage types for what we're looking at. Now let's test out Fang. So one of the things that was not covered on Wotv Calc that I have since talked about is this. So if you were to target a certain specific characters, you can see how the limit burst kind of changes. If you look here, when we target BB we're doing about 6,000 points of damage, and as you can see to Raph, on the other hand, we're only doing 4,901. But if we target Raph, who has quite a bit of health, more than BB, but you can see that the damage goes up, and partially that is the fact that she just doesn't have as much spear resistance for the damage type. But the damage spreads out based on that. So essentially you hit the main unit first that you are targeting, and then depending on how much damage you are doing to that character, it spreads out more. So it can be more effective if you are targeting certain characters with the limit burst that have weak to spear resistance, and then the enemies that are in the surrounding area will get more splash damage. Now, this is really, really cool, and one of the things that makes Fang the most interesting, because you can, in manual PvP, really screw up some other teams by targeting a unit that you know is the weakest, and then dealing massive amounts of damage towards other units very quickly. It's really, really impressive and really good. Now, with that being said, from all the testing that I've kind of seen, Fang really doesn't like casting this ability at all. Her AI does not seem to ever want to use this. I haven't seen enough to really clue me in to whether or not it's just an AP issue. It's not exactly the highest AP cost, or whether the AI is just calculating it differently and prioritizing other skills. It may be that Fang really, really requires you to cut out a lot of fat from her kit to use very specific skills. But if that's the case, it might end up not being super great anyway. But the limit burst here is really great, and I think it's just better overall in manual settings than it is in, well, settings where you're relying on the AI, because the AI seems to want to cast anything else in it. And if you look at here at just how much damage we can potentially doing, yeah, piercing damage is generally nice because you're getting through a lot of stuff. But this is not the most anti-piercing team that you could do, and you can do a lot better than that. The Fang's damage is pretty good, but when it goes up against certain matchups that are more geared towards anti-spear, the damage falls off incredibly quickly and just does not get there. Even though some of her skills even power up other spear units, for instance, like this ability is, effectively increasing the damage that other spear units can do. It's the problem that it kind of still doesn't get there. Her damage and other spear units' damage seems to be generally quite low, even with really good new VCs such as Ultros, the cooking pot, or a watch pot, never boils, or something like that. Can't exactly remember what that name is. But point being that it kind of is, it definitely seems, at least from everything so far, that it's not going to be good enough for her to be generally, or to be strong enough for most PvP settings, and that makes me kind of worried. It isn't necessarily all doom and gloom, though. We do know that Volk is coming in the future. Volk, at least elementally at this point, it seems that the next character who is not going to be Volk will be Ice Elemental, which means that we either are looking at a Earth element or a Fire element for that character, which, sure, why not? Fang could potentially work with any element properly, and if Volk somehow ends up being Fire, which I realize that it may be an unpopular idea given who the last character would end up being for Earth, it isn't the worst outcome because Fire and Thunder actually do share some VCs, and with other job VCs, it might power up Fang to being just generally better and more reliable. So Fang's future, kind of a little bit in flux right now. It seems like she'll be a generally good support unit for every spear unit to come out in the future, but how many of those are there, and will it just be better continually and forever run Flag Glassy as opposed to her? So you know what? We're just going to run our anti-spear damage. We're just toss it right here. Just throw her one, and I don't know. We'll kill this slime. Nice little HP heal there too. You can see that if her damage is good, she can get heals. And then following up with a secondary character, it effectively does upgrade if the situation is correct. If we're not looking at debuff weakening prevention, or you can't debuff anything, it's good because you can get more spear-based damage. But yeah, we'll switch over to auto and I'll just kind of finish up talking. Because as of right now, Fang does not seem to be on the higher end of PvP. She seems to be on the lower end. While she can help winning some matchups, it also feels quite a bit like one of the characters that's really doing the heavy lifting is still just Flag Glassy, or you are old, or the new water version of old, or just any other spear character. Fang is just not quite there, which is kind of weird because it looks like she should be good on paper, but little disappointing. But yeah, I think that's essentially it. If in a couple of weeks, things turn around, because there is the raid or the box event piece of equipment, which is the Chocobo. There is potentially some new VCs and her VC. Maybe that's enough to get her there, but for now, seems like Fang probably should be a skip for anyone who isn't essentially a fan of her. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. See you later.